boys, I'm your host AirsoftAL, and welcome, of course, to another Airsoft Reviews. This one, ladies and gentlemen, is one I've been requested for a long time. Not only that, this is a gun we've been requesting for in AEG form for a very long time, and with the recent release, as of 2 days ago, of the SigAir MPX, or the S1, or the SIG-1, from what I've seen of the designations. The MPX is, of course, the 9mm or pistol caliber carbine variant of the MCX, which, of course, is SigAir's AR-15 platform, more tactical. But I'm going to go ahead and let Mark from Red Wolf Airsoft talk about before we talk about this particular gun itself.
The MPX as we know it was released in 2015 and is a gas-operated SMG designed and manufactured by SigAir, and it's primarily chambered in 9mm, though in its second generation it featured a system that would allow it to use 357 SIG or 40 Smith & Wesson. The MPX used a closed rotating bolt and it was gas-operated. In an SMG, this is actually quite rare, and they did this for increased reliability and greater safety.
Now, when actually talking about the MPX for Airsoft, a lot of people seem to ignore the one model we already had prior to the AEG's release. That model being, of course, the Springer variant, the one that would go between $30 to $40 or even $45, depending on if you bought the combo pack, which came with a small pistol. However, the SigAir MPX Springer has, while yes, been reviewed a few times, most of it being for yucks or even for jokes, not actually being taken seriously as a actually considerable airsoft gun. You have to understand that this gun was the first before the AEG, and my guess is that SIG released it because once SigAir actually started getting into airsoft, they did something right. They started making really good Springers. And I mean actually really good Springers for the price tag. And look no further than their test bed, the gun that they released to see exactly how well an MPX would be received in airsoft. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the MPX SIG-1 Springer from SigAir, and, or as it's well known, SigAir. And the cool thing about this is that you think it's bad, but it's actually not. Now, taking a look at the box itself, and this is actually where you can definitely tell SigAir actually is taking this very seriously with their brand as well as their replicas. Just look at the box art itself. You have not only, of course, a full-colored variant of the MPX, and seeing that's fully licensed, but the box itself is actually really good. It's not cheap, it's actually presentable. And we can already assume this will be the same kind of box we'll see with the MPX AEG. If not, and something very different, we can definitely take a look at this box and see exactly how they'll present the AEG. From this back of the box itself, we get a much more blueprint-style view of the Springer. We not only, of course, get some lovely information, but also a lot of good detail on it. We know it's going to be spring-powered. We know it is going to get about 300 FPS, but that doesn't end there. You see how the gun is represented. You see not only pointing out everything that's talking about. Again, the packaging itself is something I wish to commend SigAir on, and thank you, and hope that this is the same kind of packaging we will see with the AEG. Now, opening it up, you automatically assume that maybe SigAir will just use styrofoam, right? No, you'd be wrong. Unlike other AEG companies that just throw styrofoam everywhere and anywhere, SigAir, with their Springer, decided to go with cardboard. Not a lot of companies use cardboard nowadays to actually house their guns. Not only that, but you get a lovely manual, which is actually very detailed, very well done, but you also get a lovely little bag of very beautiful BBs that I wouldn't recommend you use to shoot with, but I recommend you use for art, because I have a lot of these colorful BBs that I swear, if I was more artistic, and I don't mean autistic, even though I am autistic, I mean artist, I mean artistic, you know, something to create with these, because they are very pretty BBs. I mean, look at that, that is lovely neon green. That could actually make a really beautiful mural, or, you know, be used in a very lovely painting, you know, just make happy little trees, or in a happy little bush, maybe some happy little roaming hills in the background next to a happy little lake. Now, getting the box out of the way, of course, we do talk about the replica itself, and we need to talk about it because we already had a taste of what the AEG was going to be like well before they released the AEG. I'm not joking when I say that this, ladies and gentlemen, is probably the best representation we're ever going to get of the SIG MPX well before the AEG was ever released. Not only, of course, from my research does it show that this has a 14mm negative threaded barrel, but the Picatinny rails here you can remove and move about the body. I say this because there are little holes here that you can see where you could take the Picatinny rails off here and move it back here if you wanted to. You can even remove the Picatinny rail from down here, and you can remove the stopper here if you wanted to have more Picatinny rail space. This gun is 100% customizable in terms of the handguard. Speaking of the handguard, I'm not lying when I say that this handguard could be removed and can be removed by just simply undoing the 2 screws here. We will be doing a lot more research into that when we do the takedown guide, or at least show you a little bit more. Now, before we even get to the magazine, we have to talk about the buttstock here. The buttstock, which is the correct version of it on this MPX and not the AEG, which has the pistol brace style one, or at least the rifle, the MCX stock on it, when it should have the MPX stock. This is 100% fully representation of SIG. It is a 3-positioned stock, and it is actually really good. It's not that bad. Now, to get it off here, if you want to just, if you want to run it like a pistol, well, all you gotta do is press the button here and just lift up. There is Picatinny rail on the back here, much like the actual MPX, and of course the MCX, or at least the M line of their firearms, where you could put you can either put the MCX stock on this if you wanted to, or you could put a Magpul sling adapter on here, so you can run a sling from here and here and have a small little SMG. Now this goes for both the Springer and the AEG, so we're just using the Springer as a stepping stone to when we finally get to review the actual AEG of the MPX. Now aside from that, removing the stock, we see this sort of pistol caliber carbine. And moving up here, it does not have the fully ambidextrous functionality of the real steel MPX, but we do have some very lovely iron sights here. While yes, not adjustable, they're still pretty solid iron sights, and I'll be honest, they are pretty solid. And removable, so that way if you don't want these iron sights on here, you can put an optic or a red dot on there, and you can use these iron sights, which I damn well am myself, because they are really good looking iron sights. So I may throw these on one of my other guns, probably one of my AR platforms, to actually use them. But aside from that, pulling them down, you have the charging handle right here, which, definitely nice, smooth. It's got a nice hard prime to it. Not really that hard prime, but a pretty decent prime. The fire selector, as you see here, which on any other Springer would not be ambidextrous, and the left side here would be what is only ambidextrous, when in reality it is ambidextrous. The left and right side are able to be operated. But because it's a single shot, you only have to do it like a civilian variant of the MPX. So, doing that, pretty good pop to that little sucker. And, like I said, with the magazine release, even though it is not fully ambidextrous, which is a little bit sad, well, I wouldn't say that because, well, it still operates like an AR-15. And the flare magwell, as you see here, does do very good. So if you have to do that, you can at least not have to worry about how you put it in here. Speaking of the magazine, which, again, I don't know if you've seen the trademarks in this bad boy, but yes, this has a lovely amount of trademarks. The magazine itself, I want to commemorate SIG on. The way they designed this magazine is really lovely. The dimpling right there, the knurling on the front here, a little more knurling on the back, giving you that nice bit of grip, so that way you have that firm grip, and knowing that even if your hands are a little bit slippery from sweating or anything like that, you can comfortably pull the magazine out of the mag pouch, insert into the MPX, and immediately get back on target. And again, that flare magwell, I love that flare magwell. Now, there is some knurling here on the front, so that way you can, if you need to, hold it like that. If you are doing it in pistol form, you can hold it like that. Again, everything about the MPX is just really amazing. I cannot stress how just really well designed it is. Both real steel or airsoft, the MPX is a well designed firearm. And not only, of course, it being in, pistol calibers, but just because it takes inspiration from the MP5 in terms of the magazine. But outside of that, everything else is AR, so I'm fully familiar with it because, again, it's fully familiar for someone who owns a lot of AR-15s or has messed with a lot of AR-15 style rifles. So it's just one of those things. But either way, though, I have said my piece on that. Let's go ahead, get this thing actually loaded up with some .2 e-bike brand BBs and see exactly what kind of FPS we're dealing with here, because I am genuinely curious about the FPS out of this bad boy. Alright, so before I continue, I forgot to mention, of course, the magazine. The magazine is a 26-round magazine with a 500-round capacity. So if we're to guess the actual MPX magazines, which I haven't looked at yet, you'll probably see a picture of them on screen, we'll probably see how many rounds they actually go with, or, you know, the sort of mid-caps we're dealing with. But again, that information is probably on screen. But the way you actually operate this magazine, if you were using it, you know, like a standard mid-cap, you literally pull it down, you find the hole, which is about right there, at this run right here, and you just start, you know, loading them up. Now, you could do a speed loader on this, and yes, you can, but we will be doing this without the speed loader, and instead I'll just be blowing them up as best I can. Alright, I've got the magazine loaded up with .2 e-bike BBs. What I'm going to do is actually, first I'm going to collapse the stock here, pull back on the hammer, load the magazine, that way it's feeding. Safety is on, by the way, I don't have my finger on the trigger. The BBs are coming out. Let's go ahead and get this, actually let's go ahead and take the stock off, that way this will be much easier to do this. Safety's off. Chronograph is on. Let's see if this is getting that 300 FPS ratings that we know and love, or that is advertised. But then again, SIG hasn't done us wrong yet, so let's see that, shall we? 252. So that's the first shot. Okay. Here we go. Second shot coming in. 254. Gonna do 5 shots out of this. 256. Yeah, it's feeding still, it's feeding. 250, and that thing is slamming them BBs. Huh? 254. So it is not getting that 300 FPS readings that was in the box behind. That could be with .12s that they were measuring with. But what I will say is this. This thing, it's sending the BBs pretty fast. It is slamming the BBs pretty fast. So let's go ahead and take this outside and get some distance test and see if this thing will hit the broadside of a barn at 50 feet. Or if it'll hit the tree line at a little bit further distance. Shall we? Alright, we're out here, of course, at my farm. We've got a barn right downrange at what would be basically the engagement distance for most woodland play. And I have the MPX set up in my own little customized way. I have, of course, the Picatinny rails completely removed here and here on the side, making it much more comfortable for me. I have the thumb stop right here. That way it's easier to rest my hand on. And of course I've got my Magpul AFG right there at the end. And it kind of gives it that cool little futuristic style right there, which if this was real steel, this entire front end right here would be blown off by the muzzle brake. But then again, this is airsoft, so it's really whatever. I'm hoping in the future to actually, once I do the takedown guide on this, we're going to see if this has any threading under it. Once again, I've read that it does, fortunately or negative. If it does, we are throwing a suppressor on the end of this bad boy to kind of give it that honey badger look. But either way though, let's go ahead. Oof, you're going to have to get the stock replaced. I'm not going to lie to you on that. Just, you're going to want to get the stock replaced with much more better stock, because that does flex a bit. So we're going to shorten it down to the second position, which, me being a small statured person, I don't have an issue doing this, so that's easy for me. But let's go ahead, kind of get her down range and see what she's doing. It is a little windy, so fair warning on that. But here we go. Can't hit the broadside of a barn. Yes, it can. I'm going to now go for the barrel right here. We're going to see if that hits. No, it does not. I went extremely to the left. So, compensating. It hit the barrel. Now let's go straight for the tree line out that way. That is well beyond 50 feet. So we're going to see what that does. It made it to the tree line. Now I'm going to try and hit this tree, this barren tree right in front of me that is well beyond 60 feet. We're going to see if it will reach that at least. No, it does not. And in reality, that is as max distance as we're looking at right now. So we're looking at well beyond, I want to say 70 feet is the max range we're getting out of this. Granted, I can't exactly go up in high distance as I used to because the part of my porch is completely enclosed now. So I can't exactly do just a straight flat distance test in the air. But outside of that though, let's go ahead, take this inside and give our final verdicts on this and my final thoughts, shall we? Overall, my thoughts on the MPX Springer is that it's actually a pretty good Springer. I'm not gonna lie. The only thing I really have a big issue with, just overall, has to be the stock. The stock is not exactly that good, with a all polymer construction instead of the more metal construction, but because it's one-to-one scale with the real MPX stock, or even the airsoft variants, it wouldn't be hard for you to actually get an MPX stock to replace this one here. So we have a more stable one, and it's not going to break on you because the stock is going to break first before the rest of the gun. Speaking of the rest of the gun itself, I'm happy to say that this thing is really good. Much like the real MPX, while not being completely wholly AR-15, the rail system is something I am wholly actually loving of. And the best part about it is that, yes, you can remove this. These two screws you see here and here, that's what's keeping this in place. And again, all you gotta do is remove those and this thing comes completely off. That's actually nice. And the thumb stop here you can use on either of the three directions. This one right here is actually just a panel of Picatinny screwed down. So if you want to, you could actually put it up here and have yourself a nice C-clamped weapon. For me, more or less, I have it over here because that's where my thumb is mostly rested at whenever I have angle foregrips, so it's mostly rested right there. If not there, then I'd probably put a, if not my run cam up here, I would actually be having a flashlight here. That way I can quickly activate it, just more or less. But like I said, it is actually a really good little Springer. The functionality of it is 100% MPX. While not, again, without the fully ambi, I wish that wasn't the case. But one of those things. The magazines, I wish there were more of. I wish they actually went with the Korean idea, with their Korean Springers, and actually use AEG magazines for this, because if they did that, then the cross-compatibility would be nice, the price tag wouldn't go up that much, and it'd be really good. Again, I haven't opened this thing up yet. I don't know what's inside of it. I don't know what I'm about to face it when I do have this thing opened up. But again, we're going to find out in the future when I do a takedown guide of it. But either way, though, ladies and gentlemen, overall, this is actually really good. But what's my final verdict? The final verdict for the MPX Springer is no more, no less than a 9 out of 10. A must-own. The fact that this was the first MPX we actually had in Airsoft, and this was a test bed for the future MPX AEG that was recently released, I can safely say that this is a winner in my book. And for backyard skirmishes, or for those who are big fans of Battlefield, be it Battlefield 5 or otherwise, this needs to be in your collection. It's very much so affordable at roughly $30. I got this from a flea market for about $30 alongside a Lancer Tactical, which will be in a review in the future, I promise you on that. And once again, it's just really good. But if you want one yourself, you can find the MPX Springer on Amazon, Evike, Airsoft GI, and even your local flea markets if you're pretty much lucky to. I got this at the Tupelo Flea Market, and I recommend you guys go check out the Tupelo Flea Market. And I got this at Building 3 is where I got it. So, you know, they may have more of them. You don't know. Either way, though, ladies and gentlemen, my only downside, the reason I didn't get a 10 out of 10 Legendary, is simply because the stock. This stock has much to be desired. I recommend, if you are getting this, swap this out with the metal variant, or even swap it out with the solid stock, the solid folding stock variant, because again, they are cross-compatible. Or if you want to turn this into a pistol, like I'm going to get a Picatinny sling mount, throw it on the back here, and just use this as a, well, as a small carbine, like an MP5, essentially, MP5K. But again, that's for the future. Either way, though. Thank you all so very much for watching. As always, I've been AirsoftAL, and I will see all you lovely, lovely people in the next video. Till next time. Later.